So, I finally finished Spider-Man Miles Morales. Yes, the game from 2.5 years ago. Let me just say right away that I enjoyed this game a lot. It is noticeably shorter than the first Spider-Man game, but I didn't mind since the story really didn't need to be any longer than it was. It's kind of more of a TV special equivalent game than a full-on sequel. The graphics are frankly amazing, and the game runs better than some of the games that have come out in 2023. The gameplay still feels great, and Miles' abilities add a really fun new flavor to the Spider-Man combat. I love the selection of suits available, with the winter one being my favorite for aesthetic and story reasons, and the story hit me in the feels by the end thanks to the world building and the generally strong performances. I'll admit that I'm not a huge fan of Najee Jeter's performance as Miles, but he's not bad by any means. It's just hard to compete with Shameik Moore's performance or even Yuri Lowenthal as Peter. However, while I did enjoy the story, I do have some thoughts. I'm not going to do a real play-by-play or anything here. I just want to say that while the story was very sweet and pretty well told, I found it to be very safe. That's not exactly a fair critique, and it doesn't devalue the story in any way, but I guess lately I've been growing tired of stories that feature characters who are just good. They always want to do the right thing, and they struggle with how their heroic actions could put the ones they care about in danger, but there's hardly ever a deeper exploration of that. Yes, this is the quintessential hero story, but so few of them confront how people actually are. I'm going to use Miles' mom, Rio, as an example, and spoilers for the story. It is nice to have aspirational characters like Rio who can accept the consequences of living in that world. She finds out about Miles, and she's very quick to accept the situation, as far as we've seen at least, and understands that he needs to be Spider-Man. Again, there's nothing wrong with that, and for Rio specifically, she married a cop, so she's already familiar with the mindset, but frankly, I think this makes things too easy for Miles. I'm more interested in seeing how our heroes react to people close to them, maybe having a less accepting perspective. Fear is a very real thing, and I'd like to see how our heroes weigh doing hero stuff against their loved ones living in constant fear that they actually express. When Rio asks why Miles didn't tell her, he says the classic, "I didn't want you to worry." Every time I hear a superhero say this, it always feels like a cop-out answer, like an unintentional blaming of the person finding out by suggesting that they would have made things harder. I know this isn't the intention behind the line, and it's fair to not want to burden your loved ones, but especially with young hero characters, I don't buy that it's the whole truth. What if Rio had a much more negative reaction? What if she asked him to stop being Spider-Man? It's great and feel good to just have loved ones accept it and relieve the burden, but maybe it's me getting older. I want to see how they deal with that burden. If the message of being a hero is that in the face of everything, you stand your ground when people tell you to stop fighting, what does that look like when the people asking you to stop are the people you love? Related to this, I'd also like to see more heroes engage with their own selfishness. And I'm not saying I want to see less heroic heroes. A choice doesn't have to be a purely altruistic one for it to be good. We are always considering multiple things, consciously or not, when making choices, and I wish that was better explored in these kinds of superhero stories. Bringing back the "I didn't want you to worry" line, I'd like one of these stories to weave in the idea that not only did I not want you to worry, I didn't want you to make me feel guilty for doing this. I'm doing a good thing, but I also feel cool being Spider-Man, and I don't want that taken away from me. I know there probably is superhero media that thinks about this, and I'm not saying it even has to be Miles specifically who addresses it, but I want our young heroes to feel more like the person that I was at 18 years old. Actually, in the midst of making this video, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse has come out, and is the perfect example of what can be done with Miles. Slight spoilers ahead, nothing major, but skip to this time if you care. Across the Spider-Verse is all about Miles trying to navigate being a teenager who wants to do good and fulfill his parents' expectations, but also has his own desires and a growing sense of self-importance as he succeeds as a superhero and receives more praise because of that. Miles is 15 years old by this point and is becoming more irresponsible despite his heroism as he struggles to find his place in the world. And I like that this manifests as serious conflict with his parents. He's afraid they'll hate him if he reveals his identity because he's been hiding it for so long, and his parents aren't making it easy for him either, since it's evident they have their own lives going on and are not understanding where he's coming from. But he also feels somewhat entitled to special treatment because he's Spider-Man. When he's grounded for brushing off his parents, he thinks out loud, "I'm Spider-Man, I'm not grounded," and proceeds to run off with Gwen. He is still a hero with the drive to do the right thing, but he's also human and is constantly weighing what he wants against the consequences. I'm not going to make this a review of Across the Spider-Verse. It's really good, you should go see it, but the point is, what makes Miles interesting is that there is more to him than just Spider-Man the superhero. and this movie is proof of that. It's great to have aspirational characters who are just good people and only think about doing the right thing. It's a noble thing to show to kids and adults alike, but I think a lot of modern media is leaving some very rich material on the table, and I think it's just as important to show kids and adults that people, including children, who are messy and sometimes prioritize themselves, can be heroes too. If every hero is purely aspirational, their individual value in the culture is diminished. Isn't this why characters like Batman are so popular and enduring, and why Batman and Superman are always paired with each other? Complicated motivations are relatable motivations, and they don't have to be confined to adult characters. But I still enjoyed Miles Morales. All of this is really just me expressing frustration with the emotional simplicity that a lot of superhero stories seem to be told with nowadays. These stories by no means lack emotionality or depth, but I feel like many are missing a degree of self-awareness that could help elevate them to something greater. This just happened to be inspired by this game. As a whole, the story works pretty well, all things considered. I'm glad the villain was someone Miles actually had some personal and or ethical connection to, and I love the Tinkerer's tech. But even there, they don't really address Miles' accountability when it comes to why he failed to reach out to Finn. Why something is happening is what prompts self-reflection, not just saying sorry for the thing that happened. I hope that Spider-Man 2 can develop Miles' character a little more because there is a lot of potential. And on a grander scale, I hope more media that depicts young people can recognize that flawed people are real people, and real people make more interesting heroes.